70, the I-270 corridor, which is really the heart of the biotech sector in Montgomery County and throughout the area. So let's see, let me share my screen that has the full screen. All right. Can you see, Danny, you're seeing the full screen share, is that right?
Yes, I can see your
Okay.
presentation in full
Yeah.
screen.
Great. Okay, thanks. Okay, we're going to dive in. I've got about 20 slides, and we're going to move pretty quickly through them, and certainly want to leave time for questions and time for individual discussions as it comes up. So we'll do on this call, we're going to do an update about what's going on in the broader marketplace. Federal funding environment has been quite dynamic over the past 6 months. We'll give an update of what the latest is and where we're headed. And then what to do about it, importantly, into 2026. We're going to talk about how to write with AI and where it's useful, where it's not, touch on long-term funding strategies. And if there's specific questions around Grant Engine, we'll do a quick summary here at the front end and touch on a couple of elements at the back. But if you want to learn more about Grant Engine, certainly interested in that. We are based in Chapel Hill and in New York City, really driven from an overarching and fundamentally crucial mission for us around saving lives and extending the length of a quality of life. Kind of that top line that you see there is our bottom line. That's our raison d'etre. And we do that by providing a differentiated means for getting funding for our client companies. We have a number of elements that are unique and special to Grant Engine that culminate in ultimately a win rate that's 2x to 4x better than the national average. Have a top flight team and really high caliber organization. I have liked to start these in this day and age and in our environment with a little bit of where we are and where we're going in the longitudinal sense. And as a fan of history, I've really studied countries and empires that have fallen. And if you've ever read Edward Gibbon's piece, his 6-volume treatise around the history of the decline and fall of the Roman Empire, his key message is that empires fall when they lose the internal strength and that cultural cohesion that makes them great, and that external enemies of a country or an empire can only defeat that empire if it's already been hollowed out from within from itself, by its own volition. And I think in this day and age of this country of where we are, there's an important call to coalesce and provide strength as we use our taxpayer dollars, your taxpayer dollars, to drive innovation. This is contrasted with John Winthrop that wrote before America was a country, this concept of a city on a hill. And this was memorialized by Ronald Reagan when he was president, and many presidents of all different parties before and after that. And a city upon a hill is meaningful because it captures this idea of American exceptionalism before America existed, that this society, this new society, had at that time a divine mission to model righteous living. And this country and this idea really has endured as a symbol of national purpose, moral leadership, and the weight of public example. And in getting grant funding, we and you are all using public money. And I believe that we have a responsibility to use those funds to bring product into market and improve outcomes for patients, for the warfighter, for our broader society. And really that future is up to us, it's up to you to use that money well. And we have the future at our hands and in our grasp to make it successful. And this is a call to action to do it well. To touch on an important aspect of non-dilutive funding and its benefits is that there's no better place to spend a little bit amount of money to get a better ROI on your return. And it is no better place and no equal place to spend a little bit amount of money to get a few $100,000 or 2 to 3 million, and that money is non-dilutive. That's a great bet and an asymmetric upside that doesn't exist in the equity markets, private equity markets. That grant or contract award also provides validation from the NIH, the DoD, MTech, NSF, ARPA-H. All of these funding agencies provide a peer-reviewed testimonial that your product and company are worth backing and supporting, and that has traction with equity investors, acquirers, strategic collaborators. Everything takes time and requires effort, but getting non-dilutive funding is as fast or sometimes faster than raising equity funding. So it's a very viable path. And importantly, writing a grant enables success in ways that are very important. And the act of writing down your game plan and your logical approach to generating a clear set of experiments that progress in sequential pattern, meeting milestones along the way that ultimately results in an inflection point of your product's roadmap. Writing that effort down is enabling success. So there are a lot of benefits to grant and contract funding in addition to getting the money. So let's turn our attention to just where we are. I think we're starting to settle into a more regular rhythm, but there's a lot of dynamics that are going on, and we've all experienced in the last 6 months. And as the quote unquote big beautiful bill works its way through Congress for likely eventual approval, what does that mean for you in this place and space? And most importantly, what do you do with that? How do you react to grow your business with federal funding? So let's start with a quick look back on 2024 and look at the overall budgets, which were pretty consistent, a little bit higher than 23 based on inflation, but pretty consistent in 2024 from prior years. But the approval rates, the win rates dropped considerably. You can see that last line down in 2024 is the lowest it's ever been for their respective phase 1 fast track and phase 2 renewal. Or it's actually all phase 2s in that 18%. Again, for each of these respective grant types, the lowest approval ratings in the history of NIH recording them, following a long secular reduction in approval rates. Why is that? What drove that? What drove that was a spike in submissions. And in talking with reviewers and program officers, scientific review officers, the spike in submissions from 2023 to 2024 was a dramatic increase in ChatGPT quality level submissions. That's to say, they were not well written. They were poorly written. There were a lot more of them. And the increase was really driven by subpar submission quality applications. And so that mix that is often, so the dollar amounts were largely the same, but the mix went more to phase 2s than to phase 1s. Often the NIH wants to spread a lot more bets in phase 1s. So more money, it's actually 10 times the money in a phase 2 than a phase 1 went to phase 2s versus phase 1s. And so that's much more money got consumed versus planting a lot more seeds in smaller bets. So same money, but a lot lower approval rates because a lot of junk got submitted. So that's problematic, but it's also a very important tell or sign about where and how you want to use AI for your grants, and more on that later. Let's see if I can advance here. Yeah, so the numbers are, the submission volume was up 24%, but approval rates were down 37%. So a pretty significant headwind. In terms of spending, one of the interesting things is that overall spend was up 11% in the first 100 days of this administration. That is tracked largely. We're at like day 157 or 158 today. That is largely tracked throughout. And that 11% increase versus the next highest increase which was 2024, happened in spite of Doge being there, trying to cut spending. USAID came down quite a bit. CDMRP programs came down 57%. Increases in defense and border patrol, and NIH, NSF largely consistent in the budget amounts. What's interesting in terms of approved budget, in that same time period, medical research, this is just NIH dollars, is down and much lower than what it traditionally has been. We're at running about a 40% decrease in NIH spending in the first 100 days of this current administration compared to prior years. And that 40% decrease is about 1.8 billion in grants being terminated. Almost all of those were academic grants, a lot of variety of where those happened. And a lot of that is still in litigation. And what's interesting to me is that this year, even though it's underspending so far, the NIH budget, NSF budget, not the CDMRP, but we are under a continuing resolution that on March 14th put into law a budget amount for those key funding agency, CDMRP notwithstanding, that was at a funding level for 2025 that is essentially the same as 2024. And so this is being underspent pretty consistently. And so where are we right now? Again, to touch on the 2024 volume, that increase was mostly AI. Quality really matters. A lot of that spike in submission volume was poorly written. And that's why approval rates dropped to their lowest ever. At the same time, grant engines, we track impact scores of 29 and below. We had the highest number of impact scores that were 29 and below in the history of the company. So quality matters. Our win rate, our fundable score, which we're still seeing those play out on awards, was the highest it's ever been. Right now, perhaps the greatest irony is that right now, volume of submissions is dramatically down. There's a large fear factor, and many companies are not thinking a program's going to ever be there. But at the budget amounts that are the same this year in fiscal 25 as they are in 2024, the submission volume is down considerably. NCI reported 1/3 as many submissions. We saw from reviewers that they routinely are getting 1/2 or less the number of reviews that they normally get. And yet we have a budget this year that is the same size as 2024. Certainly being a slowdown, there's a slowdown, but that is catching up. April proposals that are being reviewed by the center, by centralized study section review, not by individual institute centers. And then another trend today is that reviewers are being guided to evaluate the commercial potential of the project. More and more clinicians are on study sections, and they're looking for the real world application for those products that really improve the standard of care and drive improved outcomes. And this dynamic of the supply and demand equation that's very much in favor of companies that stayed the course in late 2024, early 2025, in the heart of darkness, where there was a freeze and an unfreeze, and the Trump administration was driving a lot of fear on purpose in the marketplace. Those companies that stayed the course, that continue to have the fortitude to continue to submit quality applications, are now enjoying same budget levels and much fewer applicants. So a supply and demand equation to get approval at a much greater chance of success. And that principle of stick-to-itiveness is something that will serve companies very well in 2026 as we turn the page to looking out into the future. So I want you to remember this dynamic as we think about the next year. There is definitely opportunity there, and there's definitely money to be spent. This is an original OMB memo that was leaked in early April. It, by and large, almost identically, has been integrated into what's now called the Big Beautiful Bill. The Senate is right now going through amendment reconciliation, and if passed by the Senate, which is estimated to happen before July 4th, before this Friday, and then by the House, and then, of course, by the White House, that would drop so what I've got is a bad news story and then a good news story. So just walk with me here. The bad news here is that budget reduction is a reduction by 40% of the NIH budget, a significant reduction to NSF as well. And that would be a compression on the extramural dollars that are spent, of which a meaningful portion is allocated to the SBIR, STTR program. There's also in the Big Beautiful Bill a consolidation of the Institute centers into 8 from 27, and some would get shuttered. So that on the right-hand side, this is what's in the bill and being voted on now. The result of this is that I think it is prudent and necessary to plan that pay lines, funding, is going to get tighter in 2026. And I think there's going to be fewer applicants like we're seeing so far this year. But there is a real chance to continue to win. So expect pay lines to get tighter, expect programs to be more competitive to get funding. So that's I'll call the bad news from a supply and demand equation. The good news is that in Project 2025, that was by and large written by the Heritage Foundation, but a major author there was Russell Vogt. He is now running OMB for the White House. There's a call for an increase in the SBIR STTR allocation. They don't name a specific percentage, and it's not all about Project 2025 or this administration, but that's a data point around momentum from that corner. There is also a bill in the House of Representatives to increase the allocation from just over 3% to 8%. And if that happens, that would be a more than doubling of the dollars allocated to the SBIR program, and a more than offset the reduction in NIH NSF principal balance that is spent. There is no better program for the U.S. government for economic growth, whether it's from farm subsidies to food stamps, that drives economic advantage, it drives innovation advantage at the company level and at the country level than the SBIR STTR program, and similar programs that are moving forward for the U.S. federal budget. So the point here really is there's an opportunity for this to be more than offset. So one of the things we're curious about is, what do you think the budget will look like? So Dan, if we could post that first poll where we're asking you, what do you think on average the agencies that you seek funding from, NIH, DoD, CDMP, will move and change from here? If you could fill out that survey, that would be useful. So as those answers come through, I think I just want to continue the thread that I think, again, companies today, this year, are going to get a much greater chance of getting funding in fiscal 2025. That ends on September 30th, so it's really too late to apply. But if you stayed the course, a year ago or 9 months ago, you're enjoying a great environment. And I think that message is really there for multiple groups. Let's share those results with everyone. So I think if everyone could see that, yeah. So we've got most people think it's going to be 10 to 20%. An additional 20 to 30 group of people think it's 20 to 30%, but no one's as much as what's in the big beautiful bill, which I find interesting. Um, uh, so is that, I'm going to share results. There we go. So maybe everyone can see that now that's participating. So what do you do with this information? And I think the key message here is that you want to do really a number of things, but the first thing you want to do, let's hold off on the second poll, Dan, for a little bit. The first thing you want to do is expand the volume and the sources of where you're getting funding from. You want to pursue lots of diverse and higher volume of submissions. And we've got a tool that if we'll send these slides out, you can click on evaluate, and you can click on equity, which is a funding survey for equity fundraising that we're looking to pursue. But that evaluate is an online tool that allows you to, for free, evaluate any solicitation. It's quite elegant in its capability. So I think submit more often is the first point. And crucially, that second point on this slide goes right there with it, which is submit more quality applications. Be persistent. You want to broaden and diversify your relationships. The payment management system has a significant difference of what's going on right now, and there's tighter scrutiny on foreign risk assessment. So that's pretty crucial to pursue. The next thing I want to touch on, I've really got two more key slides, and then we'll open it up to any questions. The first slide is really around where and how to use AI. And we have scoured the marketplace for talented tech and teams that are out there. And we've really partnered with an excellent firm that has, we think, the best technology out there for using AI to write grants. And we're very clear that you need to know what you want to write before you leverage AI to do a first draft. And so we call these key things entry criteria for being successful in starting AI. And you can use AI to help build these grant theses, but not to write it. So you really need to have a specific aims page in your mind's eye about what specifically you want to do. You need to have a grant thesis a priori of how and why the grant is going to win. And you need relevant background or context and content. And then we also ask that there's a recognition that at least our platform, and we know we have the optimal platform because we've benchmarked it pretty consistently, that the tech is still new and there's evolutions that are happening all the time. And then we have found that AI is excellent to write the first draft of that content. And it's helpful to build a pyramid of communication where at the top you have the synthesis of what you want to say. The middle section is a little more detail around the innovation and key elements of why the product will be successful in the marketplace. And then a bottom of that pyramid around the approach section where you've got much more detail and focus around what you're going to do from a detailed experiment and a real rigor and attention to detail on those designs of that experiments throughout. And that's really where that right level of detail is crucial. Throughout, you need to articulate why the product is better and that differentiation, which is a function of what else is in the market space, the innovation of the tech, preliminary data or proof, how far along your product is, the team that will deliver, and intellectual property. And then, of course, who is on the team that's going to deliver is a key element. They want to have confidence in that group and what corroboration you can already offer. And AI can help you help you author the right best story. What AI is not good at today is converging on a win. AI does not know the benchmark for an outcome. It doesn't know the benchmark for a winning grant versus a losing grant. And that is where experience comes into play. Your own experience, leaning on Grant Engine as you need to, um, and making success happen. So that is where AI is useful. It's very good. You need to know what you want to write about, but the act of authoring that is very effective using AI. Um, the last thing I just wanted to touch on before a couple of overview slides about Grant Engine is some long-term funding strategies. So these are in place for you. And we've got in the slides, you'll receive a slide on each of these, but um, these are 6 durable, proven strategies that you can deploy for your funding. It's not recommended you deploy all of them, or maybe even more than one of them. But depending on your product, these are effective and they work. The first is a snowball, where you start small. Maybe it's a state grant. Maybe it's from the university that you've spun out of. Maybe it's from a grant from the small business department that you're a part of, or nonprofit organization. Start with a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 project. Leverage that into a phase 1 SBIR. Go after your product in, let's say, a warfighter application, to get a CRADA working with a Department of Defense. Then go after a phase 2. Go after a phase 2B. Early opportunities for success will prove a catalyst and success for the future. So that snowball effect, starting small and building bigger, is a really attractive one. A lot of the study sections in every corner are housed with academic luminaries and academic reviewers. So populate your grant with top flight academic rock stars that have podium power. Strategic partnerships can be very effective in pursuing areas, especially like CARB-X for infectious disease. The DoD lean on strategic partners. So that's a strategy where you are bigger because you have collaborative partners, and academics need funding now more than ever. So they're often very interested in collaborating with you. The next one is leveraging your existing grant money to get the next grant money. So you're always one step ahead. You are getting preliminary data generated for the grant that you will submit from the existing grant. And that always stops you from chasing your tail, but you're always one step ahead. If you have a platform technology, you are well served. NSF will provide funding, but it's a phase 1 first. They do provide fast tracks for platforms, but it's much more effective to go after NIH because of the size of that money and the various corners of where you can go. Platforms work well at the NIH when you go deep on one use case, one therapeutic area, one realization of, let's say it's a diagnostic off of a platform, and you go after a specific use case, specific disease, specific unmet need that exists. Go deep, get funding for that application, and then do it again by going deep to the next one, and then a third time, and then a fourth time. And that's whether your platform will yield opportunity. But to do that at the NIH in particular, you need to be able to go deep. It doesn't work if you are wide and talk about many, many different indications and use cases for your tech as the core of your proposal. You need to go deep multiple times, and that's how you get opportunities out of a platform. If you have equity, whether that's from an angel group, a Series A, multiple syndicates of an investment group, you can use that money to pay for product development that you would otherwise spend equity on. And by doing that, you free up equity to extend your runway or provide a safety net for the company. There's also a great approach to, if you have equity funding for your lead asset or first 2 assets, leverage non-dilutive funding to round out your portfolio. That will build value and provide a greater trajectory of your pipeline and longer term upside value when you sell the company. The last is a really interesting one, which I've done with a number of companies. We've done with a number of companies, which is a virtuous circle. And the principle here is you get grant or contract funding for your product, and you use that to develop your product, get it into market, show traction, whether that's in the clinic with a therapeutic or on a research tool, bringing it to market and generating revenue. And by showing progress of that product that you used non-dilutive funding to develop, you are showing yield and success. And that act shows return, and rather funding agencies want to back winners. And if you show a success with money that they gave you, they're more likely to give you the next tranche of funding in the next grant for a new product. And so that virtuous circle, taking money, having success with the money that you received, and generating yield out of it is an opportunity to do that on a virtuous circle basis. So those are all more detailed and available in the slides that you'll receive. And then a couple of quick overview on Grant Engine. We think about the world in conceptually a pretty simple way, where we're here to help companies find solicitations for funding, then win them, and then post-award manage them with our GE accounting and compliance offerings. We have a number of tools and resources that are available for you to do this yourself, or you can engage with us in a variety of different ways. This is one unpacking of the win stage of our offerings, and going from left to right, lower cost, lower intensity, high value throughout. So our AI writing tool is $199 a month, plus a very nominal success fee, going all the way to the right-hand side. Flagship is more expensive, but we write the grant, and you're building on a win rate that's 2x to 4x higher than the national average. And in between, we can add Alpha, our AI writing tool, or not, where we can add value and grantsmanship and external review. In that scenario, you write the grant, but we're adding significant value by providing insights and expertise on the writing from a lead writer, as well as program manager support to develop the budget with you, help develop a winning proposal, and then we submit for you on your behalf. And then in terms of getting started, and Dan, let's hit that poll 3 as we're talking. To move forward, we would want to have an NDA in place to protect your information, and we ask back for a product development funding survey, and that's a dossier of information. And this poll question is really just asking if you would like to be reached out to by Grant Engine, and if so, what areas would you like to know more about? That product development funding survey gives us the right level of detail to capture your information about where you want to go and why. And then from there, we schedule a call that's a subject matter expert review. That's complimentary. There's no charge for that. And really, we're helping to confirm that you're going to be competitive, that you're going to be ready, that you are ready, with you and your product are ready to submit, and that we've got a collaborative working relationship going forward. So that's a little bit about what we do and how we do it. One thing that I think is fair to say throughout this process is that it's a very dynamic environment. There's no question about it. We definitely are experiencing a government that is doing things differently, and we are absolutely here to support you and to encourage your success. And a couple of ways to do that would be to follow us on LinkedIn. We've got a pretty consistent blog post on our website that we put up on LinkedIn. We will keep you apprised of what's going on. So following us on LinkedIn is a good way to keep tabs on what's going on and what to do about it. So that's a helpful way. Or really just reach out to us. You can find us on the web or reach out to me directly. I'm happy to have a quick call one-on-one as needed. So that's what we wanted to walk through, and wanted to open it up. If anyone's got any questions or comments, drop them in the chat and we can answer them. And or we've gotten a number of folks that have said they were interested in reaching out, so we're happy to receive. But if there's any questions that anyone has, feel free to holler away, or put them in the chat and we can address them there.
Yeah, if I may, Sam, I'm sorry I joined late, so if you covered this, I apologize. But two questions regarding the new administration. There's a lot of hand-wringing about, so-called budget cuts. And from my observation, most of them seem to be very, very limited to areas like climate, DEI. Are you seeing, is there across the board real cuts in terms of R&D at the NIH or other agencies?
Yeah,
Your
great
perspective?
question, Jonathan. So yes, is the short answer. And it's not small. We've seen just in 2025, $1.8 billion in grants at the NIH get essentially terminated, right? Or as the government says, canceled for convenience, terminated for convenience. That amounts to about 1,500 total grants, all in academia. In total, there have been about 6 grants that have been canceled in a company environment, SBIR, STTR. So very few, like I can't even count them on 2 hands. But academic funding has gotten hit quite consistently. Company funding has not. In the current bill that was proposed by OMB, made its way into what's called the Big Beautiful Bill, there's a 40% cut for the NIH in that bill. That if that gets passed, I think we'll get voted on this. I touched on this earlier in the webinar. I don't know when you joined, Jonathan, but that is slated to get signed into law by the Senate, passed by the Senate before Thursday, right? Before the Senate recesses. I would bet that gets passed. If that passes the Senate, I would bet that the House passes it, and obviously the White House will approve it and sign it into law. There's also a call to increase the SBIR allocation by more than double it, up to 8%. That was called for in Project 2025. It is a House bill that's put together by some Democrats as well. So I think we're going to see a plus minus of what actually ends up happening in 2026. But even I can say this also for certain, that this year the budgets are being underspent. So there'll be a catch up, or agency officials will run the risk of breaking the law by not spending the approved budget. Even if we get a 40% cut, the number of companies that are applying for those grants is down by at least 40%. So the demand for that money is also way down because people are afraid. They don't think the money's going to be there. And this year the money is there, right? It's signed into law. And so I think, for those companies that are smart, they will stay the course and continue to. So even if it's cut, I think that will cast a shadow on the marketplace applying for the money, and more what's happening right now where the money is available, more than the fair share of people that could get that money are not applying because they're afraid it's not there. And so it's a better equation for the companies that do stay the course. So I think there's going to be money there. I think it could be higher dollars, right, for companies. So I think the message is stay the course, continue to submit, and you might enjoy a booster, bumper crop, a boost than you otherwise normally would.
That's very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's remarkable the impact of fear on the marketplace. Like the budget got approved at the same levels as 25, but 1/2 to 1/3 of the number of submissions this year. And you put all that together, it equals opportunity.
I'm actually fascinated. I did not know that there was discussion of increasing the SBR allocation. Many years ago, I led a coalition that actually was successful in getting a very small increase to the current, whatever it is, 3.5 or whatever it is right now. It was like 2.7. And we faced, ferocious opposition from the academic lobby. Everybody said it couldn't be done, but we were successful with it. But at that point, the universities had extraordinarily political clout, and they were held in very high regard by both Republicans and Democrats. That is no longer the case, at least with Republicans. So I'm hoping, and I don't know if you and your clients and network, I think now is a great time for companies to get together and push for that doubling. If it's in Project 2025, it's got a great shot, but only if small companies actually make their way to Capitol Hill and get their voices known, because it's appropriate. And the academic lobby does not have the power, I don't think, that they used to. And they have so many bigger fights right now. They just may not have the stamina or the political capital to oppose it the way they used to. So I think there's a lot of opportunities, threats, of course, but also opportunities with this administration.
Yeah, it's an excellent point, and we agree. I think hopefully you guys can see. We only have a green border around this, but if you can see, we've got a blog post that speaks to the economic impact of the SBIR program. Which, I mean, it is not small. The job creation, tax revenue, country innovation leadership, and importantly, biotechnology is widely recognized, rightly so, as a national security topic. This is not just develop a drug for shingles, vaccine for shingles. This is a national security priority. And so in addition to driving economic growth, it's a national security priority. And we have put in to the slides, which you will receive on slide 12, a link to democracy.io. And that's an uber easy way to reach out to your elected official. You click on that, put in your address, and it will frame up a message for you to reach out to your elected official. And we've even drafted a starting place for your message if you would like to take that and massage it. But I think there is a bill right now circulating in the House that calls for that 3.65% to go to 8%. So it's in Project 2025. That's one day.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So I think this is a call to action. I think we absolutely have an opportunity to influence this outcome. And I think I wrote my congressman, it was like 3 weeks ago, I got a letter back saying that they're supportive. So, I think, this is how democracy works.
And it could only happen now. It can only happen with a Republican-controlled House, a Republican-controlled Senate, and probably a Republican-controlled White House. So, which we may not have, a year and a half from now, or 2 years from now. So there's a small window. So I'm happy to talk to you about that offline. In fact, I see Shamay on this call. So she was I don't want to use brother in arms if the right word. It's just whatever the right word. She was very much, you worked with me on that. This was 12 years ago, 15 years ago. I don't remember.
Yeah, that would be great to huddle up on. I think, there's an opportunity here. And I think this is good for the country. It's good for small business innovation. So we're focused on that. Yeah. Great. Good points, Jonathan. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Anything that anyone's curious about? Okay. Well, we will wrap it up there. Rich, if you could stick around, and obviously Dan, I want to thank you for joining. Jonathan, we'll follow up.
I would like, if I can stick around now, or we could set something up at another time. What's up to you?
Yeah, let me reach out to you.
Okay, we can set something up later in the week.
Set something up, later this week or early next. But yeah, we've got the year is going to move quickly by September 30th, and this usually happens towards the end of the legislative calendar. But yeah, that would be
But I'd
great.
also like to talk to you about our company and our strategy with regard to grants. So
We'll be delighted.
let's set something up.
Yeah, looking
Thank
forward
you.
to that. We followed
Thank you very much.
2020 for some time, so that'd be great.
All right. Be well. Bye.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm gonna just roll some folks out.